Hi everybody, Dr. Smock here once again for yet another After Effects lower third tutorial video. Today we're going to start with the lower third we used in our last video, but add those nice little lines that shoot across as it animates in and animates out. So to begin, let's make a copy of our lower third from that last video. I'm just going to select the folder, do a Command C, and Command V to paste it into place. I'm going to rename it lower third lines. I'm going to twirl that open and rename the comp as well. I'm just doing this so I don't get it confused at any point with our original one. And then let's open that up. I could just jump in here and start drawing the lines in, but before I do that, I actually want to work down in the actual lower third area. And so I want to move our current lower third graphic down there. The easiest way to do that is to create a null object. So right click and create a null object. Then select all of our existing layers here and parent them to that null object. Remember, parenting items to a null object is a lot like grouping them. Now I can select that null object and I can move everything together. I'm just going to stick it right down here in the corner of the title safe area. Now let's draw a line. I'm going to come up to my pen tool, select that. I already have a color preset here. And I'm going to draw a line right up here above the lower third. I click once, I scroll over, and I hold Shift down and click again. I hold Shift down just to ensure that I'm drawing a straight line. Then I can get my selection tool, click a couple times outside the area there, and I've got my line. Now the way this is going to work, as you saw from that preview, is the lines are first going to shoot in from this side, then they're going to shoot back from the other side. But we can't see them when they're over in this space to the right of the lower third, or when they're over on the left of the lower third either. And that's because we're going to use a matte. The whole idea with a matte is that it works much like a matte in picture frame would. The only thing the viewer is going to be able to see are objects that are inside of that matte. So essentially, I need to make a space that this line will be visible inside of, and then outside of that space, the line won't be visible. I can do that by making another shape layer. I'm going to click on my rectangle tool, then just click and drag a new rectangle over our existing lower third and let go. As I do that, a new shape layer goes into place automatically in After Effects, so we're all set there. And now we're getting closer to being able to have this line only appear in this area. We have a couple more steps we need to take. I'm going to rename my layers before I go any further. I'm going to call that first one, first shape layer, line 1. I'm going to call the second shape layer empty box 1. Again, that's just so I can keep track of them. Then, with line 1 selected, I'm going to change the track matte setting from none to alpha matte. And essentially, that turns our empty box into our matte. If I click with my selection tool just somewhere off of that line, we can't see it anymore. And that's because it is outside of the matte area. If I select the line layer, then I click on the anchor point and move it down, let go, and click off of it. Now we can see that line. Moving it by needing to select that anchor point that's way over here is kind of a pain. So I'm going to come up to my toolbar and get my pan behind tool out so I can move that anchor point to a place that seems a little bit more logical to me when I want to move my line around. All right. Get my selection tool back out. I'm going to slide this line all the way over here so that when we're not in this mode where it's selected, we can't see it. I'm going to click on that line layer again, and then I'm going to hit the P key on the keyboard for the position keyframes, hit the stopwatch, and scroll forward a little bit here. So I drop my first keyframe in there, and now I'm just dragging to the left to move that guy all the way across our empty box. Here we are. Now it's out of the box. So if I rewind, you see it shoot across real quickly. It's a little distracting working with the existing lower third right there. And where we have our keyframes positioned in relation to how the lower third currently animates isn't how we're going to end up having them positioned. So to simplify things for us a little bit, I want to make a new pre-comp. I'm going to select line 1 and empty box 1, right click, and select pre-compose. Off the screen you can see, I had a window pop up. Let me drag it over for you. It's the new pre-compose window. And basically, it wants a name. I'm just going to call it lines. And by default, it says move all attributes to the new composition. That's what we want. We want everything we've done so far to move over. And once we have it pre-comped, we can just drop that comp inside of this main one and have our animated lines do their thing. So I'm going to click OK here. All right, so now I'm out in our new comp. I can kind of rewind and play forward. We'll see our one line shoot across there. Spin that down. Actually, just hit P. That'll be easier. And I'm going to select both of those keyframes, and I'm going to drag them all the way over here. So the first one is actually taking place when we're in our first frame. Go a little further there. There we go. So from the beginning, that animation's happening. I'm going to select my empty box layer for a minute. And I have my rulers turned on. If yours aren't turned on, you can go up to View and select Show Rulers. And I have them on because I want to drag a guide out. And this is kind of a silly one to drag out because it's just right on the edge of our title safe, but that's all right. I'm going to drag another one out over here. And I'm just doing that so I have a visual reference of where the edges of our box are as we're working on animating those lines to make sure that we're actually staying outside of that area when we place our keyframes. So the next thing we need to do is start duplicating these two layers here over and over again so we can have more lines. Each line needs its own mat. I'm going to select empty box 1, then line 1, and do a Command C and a Command V, and I'm going to paste them in. After Effects picks up on what I'm trying to do with my numbering and automatically assigns a 2 to each of those, which is very convenient. And what I want to end up doing is actually staggering these lines so that they aren't all one on top of each other. So I'm going to stagger them horizontally and vertically at the position keyframe so we can see things here. But if I go in and I just start adding new keyframes to what I currently have, I'm going to have trouble because I already have 2 keyframes in there from when I copied and pasted. So first you need to delete those out. You don't need those keyframes. So that just kind of leaves it where its last keyframe was. So I'm just going to click on that and drag it back over to this end. And I'm going to take it down a little bit and over right here. And that'll be where I start this one from. Then I'll come forward some. Hold Shift down to keep it straight. And now we're outside of the area. We should be okay. Let's deselect and play back. First line, second line. There we go. Let's say I want those a little closer. I can just move those keyframes in. If I want them to take a little longer, so I move them apart. And this is essentially the process I need to go through and repeat multiple times until I have all the lines I want to work with. One thing that can help to shorten this process up is not having the keyframes in place when you are copying and pasting. It's a little too late to do that for this particular copy and paste I'm about to do. I'll copy and paste, and then I'm going to select only the line 1 layer, hit P, get rid of both of those keyframes, delete them out of there, and then I can copy and paste and paste and paste and paste and paste. Now I've got 8 lines. I'm going to move this up a little bit here. Space bar and click and drag to move that up. So now I'll be able to see more of my layers while still seeing the area that I'm working in the canvas. So then we come down to line 3. and I would drag that over to where I want line 3 to kind of exist to begin. Maybe I'll pull that one back a little further, drop its keyframe in, and then go forward in the timeline, drag it forward, holding shift down to keep it straight. Or maybe you don't want it to be straight. You could, have it end up here. It's up to you. I'm going to hold line down though. Get it outside of that area. 1, 2, 3. There it is. That third one's a little bit late. The line we see sitting off to the left here, that's just all these other ones stacked on top of each other in the position where they ended up. So they won't be there when it's all said and done. They're just kind of there right now. I'm going to move these over some and keep going. So I'm going to pause my recording here and do my moving of lines outside of the recording space just to save you time on the video. You won't have to skip ahead through all this. It's going to be really boring to watch me do the same thing over and over again. But when the video picks back up in a second, we'll move on to the next phase in animating these lines. Welcome back. While you were gone, I went through and added a lot more keyframes to our pre-comp. Each line now has a starting keyframe that positions it to the right of our mat, and then it has a second keyframe that positions it over to the left of our mat. The third keyframe actually is the same as the first one. I've just copied and pasted it into place. That's so our lines will go from the right initially to the left, and then go from the left back over to the right, exactly where they started. You can see I still need to do one. I haven't done line 8 yet. So let's go ahead and do that one. I'm going to click the first keyframe, Command C to copy it, drag the timeline, or drag the playhead rather, to the position I want to drop that keyframe in, paste it in, and now that one will go from left to right as well. Because we started making this pre-comp, we created it based on 2 items that were already in our original comp. When we go back over there, we'll see that our pre-comp is already inserted in place of those 2 items that were there originally. I've moved some of my other frames for the lower third down the timeline just a little bit, and let's see how this plays out. Let's move our timeline down so we can see a little bit better. And just for fun, here, let's do this too. Let's drop in this photo. Make it a little bit more realistic. Yeah, it's not video, but it'll still serve our purposes here. All right. We'll fit this to screen. So the lines come in, then our lower third comes in, and then it heads on out. We can use those lines again though, right? Because it's a pre-comp. I can just drag it down one more time here and slide it in the timeline down to when it's beginning to animate off screen. Kind of help with that transition. That's what our lines are doing for us. They're just giving us kind of a visually interesting transition for the lower third. It'd be nice if they went a little bit longer there. What we could do, and this would be the easiest thing, we can just add it in one more time. I'm going to drop it in the timeline here. Stagger it a little bit. There we are. If you have any questions about how the track mat works and how to achieve this kind of effect or a similar one, make sure you let me know.